Hello friends. So today we will be learning about the Morley Minto reforms or uh, the Act of 1909. So we know that this act was called Morley Minto reforms. This was because Morley was the Secretary of State and Morley was the Secretary of State and Minto was the Viceroy uh, of the act. So we need to divide this act into six basic points, as a result of which we will be able to cover this act and understand the act in a very lucid manner. So first point was that you can see that the size of legislative council was increased at both central and provincial level. So you can see that the size of legislative council is getting increased. The number of members in central legislative council was raised from 16 to 60. So initially it was 16 and then it was raised to 60. So first point you should try remember is that the size of legislative council was increased from 16 to 60. Second point was that uh, uh, also you must remember that the number of members of provincial legislative council were not uniform. So the members of provincial legislative council were not uniform, so it retained the official majority of central legislative council. It retained the official majority, so the official majority of central legislative council was retained, but uh, allowed the provincial legislative council to have non-official majority. So they were having official majority, but these were having non-official majority. Again friends, the third point is it enlarged the deliberative functions of the legislative council. So it enlarged enlarged the deliberative functions of the uh, legislative council at both levels. For example, members were allowed to ask supplementary question, move resolutions on the budget, and so on. And then it provided for the first time the association of Indians with the executive councils of viceroy and governors. So the Indians, so it provided for the first time the association of Indians with the executive councils of the viceroys and governors. Satyendra Prasad Sinha became the first Indian to join the Viceroy's Executive Council. He was appointed as law member. The next point is it introduced. So you can see that this guy is a Muslim. So he's wearing cap with respect to all the Muslims. With due respect to all the Muslims, this guy is a like he's a Muslim. So it introduced a system of communal representation of Muslims by accepting the concept of separate electorate. So you can see that the Muslims, he is a very happy. um, under this the Muslim members were to be elected only by Muslim voters. So the Muslim members were, so you can see that these are the Muslim voters. They are electing the head, that is the Muslim members. And Lord Minto came to be known as the father of communal electorate. So Lord Minto came to be known as the father of communal electorate. Then next point is it also provided for the separate representation of presidency corporations, chambers of commerce, and zamindars. So you can see that they are having separate representation. So friends, let us revise all the important points. The first point is that it considerably increased the size of legislative councils both at central and provincial. The number of members of central legislative council was raised from 16 to 60. As you can see, the number of members in the provincial legislative council of the Morley Minto reforms was not uniform. So the first thing. Second thing is it retained the official majority in central legislative council. So you can see that official majority in central legislative Legislative Council, but allowed the Provincial Legislative Council to have non-official majority. You can see that the Provincial Legislative Council is having non-official majority. Third point is that it enlarged the deliberative functions of the in the legislative councils at both level. So it enlarged the functions, deliberative functions of the legislative council at both the levels. For example would be like members were allowed to ask supplementary questions, move resolutions on the budget, and so on. Next is, it provided for the first time it provided for the association of Indians with the executive council of the viceroy. Indians were associated to executive council of the viceroy and governors. Satyendra Prasad Sinha, he first Indian to join Viceroy's Executive Council. So the Viceroy's Executive Council, Satyendra Prasad Sinha, he became the first person. Then the next was that you can see that this guy is very happy. So am I. So it introduced a system of communal representation for Muslims by accepting the concept of separate electorate. You can see that the concept, they have accepted the separate electorate. So under this, the Muslim members were elected only by Muslim voters. So you can see that the Muslim members are getting elected only by Muslim voters. Okay, so these are Muslim members, they are electing Muslim voters. And you know that Lord Minto came to be known as the father of communal electorate. And also it provided the, you can see that, separate representation for presidency, uh, corporations, chambers of commerce, and zamindars. So these were the six important points that you can you that you we need to remember. So again, the first point is, it increased the size of legislative council. Let us revise for the last time. For both central and provincial, the number of members in the central legislative council was raised from 16 to 60. The number of members in the provincial legislative council was not uniform, and it retained the official majority of central legislative council but allowed the provincial legislative council to have non-official majority. It enlarged the deliberative functions of the legislative councils at both the levels. For example, members were allowed to ask supplementary questions, move resolutions of the budget, and so on. And then you can see that it provided for the first time association of Indians with the executive councils of the viceroy and governor. Satyendra Prasad Sinha became the first Indian to join viceroy's executive council. He was appointed as the law member. Next, you see that it see, this Muslim is very happy. It introduced a system of communal representation for Muslims by accepting a concept of separate electorate. Under this, the Muslim members of 1909 Act were to be only elected by Muslim voters. Thus, the act legalized communalism, and Lord Minto came to be known as father of communal electorate. And last was, it provided separate representation of presidency, corporations, chambers of commerce, and universities and zamindars. So size of legislative council was increased. And and a official majority of central legislative council was retained. Deliberative functions of legislative council were enlarged. Provided for the first time association of Indians to executive council. It introduced a system of communal representation for Muslims by accepting the concept of separate electorate, and it provided for the separate representation of presidency, corporations, of chambers of commerce, universities, and zamindars. So thank you, dear friends. I hope that you were able to grasp 2 to 4% of the Indian Councils Act of 1909. Thank you very much, dear friends.